Welcome to Budget Outlaws. Today we're draining some really old gas and hoping for the best, but fearing for the worst. We'll see if we can look inside the tank and check the strainer. Plus we'll do hood hatch, struts, visor clips, wipers, clutch master and slave cylinder, and also the brake master cylinder. Let's get started. We're working on the 1984 one-owner Porsche 944 with 87,000 miles that has been sitting for 20 years. It needs a lot of maintenance before it hits the road or even gets started. Since we're waiting on parts on the mandatory timing and balance belt job, and we're keeping busy with some of these other items. Since we're doing several individual jobs today, I put quick links to whatever you're working on down below in the description. But they go by pretty quickly, and the gas drain is pretty interesting. We'll kick it off by replacing the saggy hood and hatch strut so I can get rid of the props. For this, you only need something to prop up the hatch and needle nose pliers to apply a little leverage for the sticky ones. Well, with a bit of prying, they pop off. Normally the job is pretty quick, but one of the clips on the new hatch strut wouldn't hold. So I put a new driver's side one on and the old passenger side on, and we'll get a replacement for the passenger side. Meanwhile, 1.5 is holding the hatch up just fine. I did have to repair the passenger side wire for the interior light, and was able to find a new clip and reuse the old black cover for an original look. I crimped it and soldered it on. The front struts were a challenge. They really pump up the gas pressure on those. They come off easy enough. Release the bottom clip, then pop it off. Then release the top clip and remove the pin. To install them, pop the bottom on first and then fight with the top. It's easier to push down than to pull up. If you have a friend that can slide the pin in while you press it down and hold it into place, that's the easiest way to do this. I managed to find a punch about the same size as the pin and was able to get the top started with that from the inside and feed the pin in from the outside. Your mileage may vary. Well, visor clips are about as easy as they get. Just a Phillips screwdriver and 2 screws per clip. If you remembered from the earlier videos, the interior on this car is pristine. But still, the old visor clips just crumbled. Use something to catch the remains of the old clips so they don't go all over the place. I suspect the material used for this is just inferior. Just about every 944 on the road has had these clips replaced. So that job's done. Let's keep going. The wipers were folded over, and I wanted to change them before somebody accidentally turned them on and scratched the windshield. It's a straightforward job. Just press in the clip and push them out. I use a small screwdriver inserted between the clip to get it to release. So that's done too. The brake master was leaking and the clutch master went to the floor. And actually the clutch and slave cylinder probably could have been bled out, but I didn't like the looks of them. So I changed them all out. I'll flush out the lines and then hook up the remaining line on the slave cylinder. Notice that I have the starter removed. That's because of the belt job that's in progress. I'll go over that in the belt video. But having the starter out makes it easier to change these slave cylinder bolts. So it's a good time to change out the slave. Hey, check out my cool homemade flywheel lock. It's 50 cents versus $50. I painted it red so I could find it when I needed to and identify it as a tool and not 50 cents worth of scrap metal. I'll do a video on that too. We're going to begin a series on shop and tools the budget way. So I got the slave cylinder tightened down, and I left the hydraulic line disconnected until I run some brake fluid through it to make sure that it's clear. So moving on to the brake master and clutch master. For this job we used a 3/8 ratchet, long extension, swivel 13mm socket, 10mm socket, and a 11mm line wrench. Actually, I used a 7/16. It's the same size. And then 11, 12, and 13 box wrenches, a lineman's side cutter, and a small blade screwdriver, number 1. And then eventually we'll use a motive power bleeder. The brake master is pretty simple. 3 11mm lines and 2 13mm bolts, and then the feed line to the clutch master. But the clutch master is buried under all these hoses, so make it easy and move them out of the way by removing 2 10mm bolts holding the bracket to the inner fender. Then just 1 or 2 hoses can be removed and it folds out of the way. It's a 12mm line nut and then 2 13mm nuts holding it to the firewall. I reused the old push rod. It looked fine and I didn't feel like cramming my body underneath the dash. The leaking fluid ruined the paint on the power brake unit and hopefully nothing else. So I sanded it down and applied some black satin paint. Assembly is pretty easy. You do need to transfer the reservoir over to the new master cylinder, and I did my best to clean up the reservoir first. Mounting bolts and hydraulic lines, and it's good to go. We'll do a complete brake and clutch bleed once the brake assembly at the wheels is inspected and rebuilt if necessary. I highly recommend a pressure bleed tool like the Motive Power Bleeder. It's around $60 and saves a lot of headaches. So next we're going to drain the gas. The tools for this were a flat number 2 screwdriver, 3/8 ratchet, and deep 17mm socket, and some funnels and gas cans to catch the old gas. I saw a couple of videos of older cars that had sat. Their gas tanks were pretty nasty and full of rust and garbage, so I was really holding my breath on this task. The one good and bad thing with the gas is that it was nearly a full tank. It's bad because we have to get it all out of there, but it's good because there's less air in the tank, which means less moisture and less rust. I removed the fuel line from the fuel pump, which would give me a way of guiding the gas into the waiting cans. I had several cans ready as I really didn't know how this was going to go. I found some plugs for the line, and then depending on the size, I was ready to plug it back in. Then I pulled the line off and guided the gas into the tank.
I hope you can see that. It's actually very clean.
I was shocked to see that it was running clear. No rust or particles at all. I filled up the first one and plugged the hose back up. Even my plug fit and didn't leak. So now, as clear as this was, it was still varnishy smelling. So I knew I had to keep going. I filled up the second and third can and put a little into a glass jar for inspection. Finally, it stopped flowing. At that point, I had high hopes that when I pulled out the filter...
Alright, so that actually came out real loose, real easy. And unscrewed it, and look at that. That's nice. I'm calling that perfect.
And it was as clean as can be. I was thrilled. I attempted to put the camera into the tank, but I couldn't make it turn up into the main reservoir. I didn't get any pictures of the bottom reservoir, but it was clean. And any garbage in the tank would have shook loose on a 400-mile trip home. So I think we're good. I had to put the belt job on hold because I found some seeping from the lower balance shaft seal. And after pulling the top balance shaft seal off and the sleeve, I found out there was a pretty deep groove in the sleeve. Well, I can't stand a leaking engine, so I ordered full kit from Pelican Parts. It will be here soon and we can finish up that job. We're making good progress. I can't wait to get this back on the road. Well, thanks for watching. If you like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks again. Bye.